Johnson. Antonello hit the bar. Johnson who made the one goal. But here's Coutinho, found by Suarez.
So one of the most interesting things I found on the internet was minimum wage and how so many people are affected by this. I read a little article on USA Today. It says that in California, a minimum wage employee has to work a total of 130 hours during a week just to be able to afford a decent two-bedroom apartment. That's like unbelievable.
To go along with that, keep it local. In New Jersey, I found that 98 hours of work are needed simply just to afford rent, which means 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, a person would need to work just to afford rent, which clearly means that it's minimum wage isn't high enough and the cost of living is way too high.
Yeah, and also bringing it back to the Department of Labor, they did a research and they said that it takes an average of 2.6 full-time jobs just to, afford a decent two-bedroom apartment in the state of Washington, D.C.
But yeah, that's a big problem. And as we saw from the 30 Days episode in class, it's clearly too difficult to live on minimum wage. I know some people that I work with have two minimum wage jobs. They go in the morning to their first job, and then at nighttime they're working with me, and then they have no time to themselves and they're exhausted the entire time.
It's just
not a
simply
good way to live.
impossible. So what Obama plans to do is put a federal minimum wage of $10.10. And of course, there's going to be a lot of problems with that, but they take a lot more into consideration. Such as if you lived in Florida, the standard of living is a lot less than if you lived in New York City. So I don't know. I think Obama has a lot in his hands, and I just want to see how far this goes.
Yeah, I think this is something you should stick with the states, and especially because there is all the different costs of living and whatnot. You can't really fix the cost of living, so the best thing to do is fix minimum wage, and that's something the states should do.
No hurry to take. Luis Suarez's work rate is absolutely exceptional.
Robbie, I don't know about you, but I read this article where an airplane went missing.
An entire airplane.
A commercial airplane with over 290 people just poof, vanished.
Wow, I've heard this too. I think it's a Boeing 777 giant airplane just randomly goes missing right off the radar.
It's like a commercial airplane. It's hard to believe with the kind of technology we have in place today, we can manage to lose an airplane out of the air. It just disappears.
Yes, and as many people don't know, there's actually been dozens of planes gone missing that haven't been accounted for, but this one has been blowing up in the news, and it seems more controversial in my eyes than it is more of a mystery, because you see all this evidence of the crash all around the Pacific and Indian Ocean.
Right.
They claimed, this is wreckage, and then they go search for it, and then you don't hear back anything from it, and it's starting to be ridiculous. I don't know what's going on now.
And you know what really bothered me was the Malaysian Airlines company. They sent out a text message. You know what they sent that text message?
Yeah, it was this past Monday. They sent a text message basically stating that all the passengers aboard were dead, and it's a shame too because they said the plane must have gone down the Indian Ocean and that they're dead, but really they didn't have any evidence to back that up. It's almost like they were giving up.
Right.
And it's a little ridiculous.
I can't even imagine what those families are going through. It's how angry they must feel at that. The airline company's just, kind of giving up hope on these people, and they might be surviving, but it's just upsetting. How they would send it over a text message.
And it's been over 2 weeks now, and they seem to not have made any progress either. In an article I read, someone said they're not looking for a needle in a haystack, they're still looking for the haystack. So God knows when they're going to find out what happened to this plane.
And, I think that this will help new rules and regulations to come into place so something like this doesn't happen again in the future.
Yeah, hopefully it never does.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Plane just disappears.
It is terrible.
And
Goes to Stephen Jarlath, the local boy living in
2014.
Great year.
I am a Brazilian, and we are going to be hosting the 2014 World Cup. Brazilians are known for being fashionably late, but this time I'm worried. You know, they have still 2 stadiums to build, and they're almost done with it, but they're still not sure if it's going to be finished by opening ceremony.
Yeah, that's a big problem. When you need 2 stadiums and the World Cup, which is probably one of the biggest venues you can have in the world, and you're not even ready for it. That's a serious issue. And also, I was reading some articles, and it doesn't. Obviously, they're not ready right now, and God knows when they'll be ready. Hopefully, obviously, they need to be ready before June, because
Yeah.
that's when the World Cup starts. But there's running into more problems. You know, like there's some riots that have been going on in Rio and around where the World Cup will be.
And you know, the best part was that the protesters are making their voices heard internationally by holding rallies in front of government buildings and to aim problems Brazil is facing as a country. Protesters are demanding, greater public transport, greater public spendings on both education and healthcare, and better security. And one of the biggest fears FIFA and the Brazilian authorities are preparing for is for if protesters decide to protest during the World Cup.
Yeah, I'm a soccer fan. I'd hate to see violence going on during the games, because that's just the last thing anyone would want to see. There's a lot of people going to be watching the World Cup too, and especially it wonders they got the Olympics scheduled to be in Brazil too
In 2016.
In 2016, so you don't know what could happen then. Like they're clearly not ready yet, and I don't know if they can handle it. To be honest.
Well, I think they'll be prepared. They have spent over 470 million euros as a security operation, and there's going to be over 170,000 troops, police officers, and security staffs on streets. And one thing that I'm really upset about is they've upgraded the transportation, but the Brazilians are still complaining about healthcare and education, and how the money should have been invested into the people instead of the World Cup. So
yeah, it's definitely something we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens, because it's a serious problem.
It's truly upsetting.